promised to lead his children out of bondage. He said he'd free them from Pharaoh's evil hand. He said he'd guide and protect them on their journey and lead them to the promised land. God's children were slaves in Egypt land, so God took Moses by the hand, said, Moses, tell old Pharaoh to set them free. Well, Moses wanted a way to get out, cause in his mind he's beginning to doubt. He said, Lord, old Pharaoh, he ain't gonna listen to me. Now the Lord said, son, throw down that rod. And old Moses did, and he cried to God, cause it turned to a snake as evil and wicked as sin. But then he cried again with an awful wail, and the Lord said, seize him by the tail. Old Moses did, and it turned to a rod again. God promised to lead his children out of bondage. He said he'd free them from Pharaoh's evil hand. He said he'd guide and protect them on their journey and lead them to the promised land. Well, the Lord said, Moses, I've got power and I'll be with you every hour. Said, go on, tell old Pharaoh to set them free. Well, Moses did, but the Lord helped out. He sent a plague to the land about, so old Pharaoh told him to go and let him be. The weather started out with a cloud that day and a fire by night to lead the way, but old Pharaoh suddenly decided to change his mind. So he gathered together his soldier band, got all them chariots throughout the land, said, I'll let them Hebrews go some other time. God promised to lead his children out of bondage. He said he'd free them from Pharaoh's evil hand. He said he'd guide and protect them on their journey and lead them to the promised land. Well, they came to the banks of the old Red Sea, turned to Moses and started to flee, and Moses fell on his knees right there in the sand. The Lord said, Moses, trust in God, because all you got to do is just raise that rod, and over these mighty waters stretch your hand. Well, Moses followed the Lord's command, and the waters parted, and there in the sand they saw a path that led to the other shore. Well, the ground was dry and they passed on through. Old Pharaoh's army said, we can too, but the waters fell, they had never been seen no more. God promised to lead his children out of bondage. He said he'd free them from Pharaoh's evil hand. He said he'd guide and protect them on their journey and lead them to the promised land.
Good evening. I'm Rabbi Steve Silberman of Congregation of Havas Chesed here in Mobile, Alabama, and I'm delighted that you and I, all of us, are coming together for Pesach, Passover, for Seder. It's been a very strange year, and we are celebrating nonetheless, although there have been many downs, and as you and I both know, the downs won't immediately disappear, but there are also moments of up. And one of the greatest ups has been the Alabama Community Virtual Havdalah, which Rabbi Scott Kramer brought into being. And I'm thankful to Rabbi Kramer for his initiative and his vision. And we have now fashioned a new type of community, both from many different towns and areas and homes, the Alabama Community Virtual Havdalah. And this Seder unites us all, and you may be using it in any one of a number of varying ways, and that works. Whatever works to keep us all together. It's a pleasure to introduce Rabbi Scott Kramer, and afterwards, Yehuda Silverwolf. And then you and I will be joining each other again, an opportunity to bless the children at the table.
Welcome, Chag Sameach, happy Passover. I hope that all of you and your families are well. The idea of putting together the Seder came from Rabbi Steve Silberman, who is our Mashkiach Ruchani, or spiritual guide of the Alabama Community Virtual Havdalah. We have invited members of this group to help us produce the Seder. They are Rabbi Steve Silberman of Mobile, Cantor Neil Schwartz of Dothan, Miriam Wyman of Auburn, Turia Stark Williams of Auburn, Chaz and Charles Barron of Boca Raton, Florida, Yehuda Silverwolf of Mobile, Dr. Danielle Eisen of Mobile, and myself, Rabbi Scott Kramer of Montgomery. We are using a special Haggadah, which was provided to you in PDF form, called A Night to Remember, written by Noam Tzion of the Shalom Hartman Institute in Jerusalem. My own Siddharim have been transformed by what I have learned from Noam personally over the years. I invite you to sit back and bask in the music of the Seder and peruse the Haggadah with its traditional text, wide-ranging commentary, wisdom, and humor.
It's dedicated by the editors to the memory of our friend Marla Ann Bennett, a smiling presence. He celebrated her last Seder at our home. Marla was murdered in the terrorist attack on the Hebrew University cafeteria the 22nd of Av, 5762, July 31st, 2002. May her memory be a blessing. I remember when that terrorist attack to that cafeteria, that terrorist attack in a very deep and enduring painful shiver up and down my spine and my wife, because years before, when I was studying in Rav school, rabbi school, my wife and I used to go to that cafeteria. We were on a very limited budget, and once a week we splurged by going to the cafeteria. And at the time, in 87, 88, I think a meal was 8 shekels, and we could barely afford it, but we got a really nice meal, and we enjoyed our evening out at a cafeteria. So when, about 4 or 5 years later, we were bombing in an innocuous place that you take for granted, school cafeteria, it hit us deeply. And when Rabbi Kramer and I decided to use this Haggadah, and I began to read through the text, and I found this dedication, it hit me hard once again. And perhaps we take hold yet again and again and again of the mixture of maror and charoset, the bitter and the sweet. And my prayer this year for all of you is that in the years ahead, in the years yet to come, may there be smaller and smaller moments of maror, and greater moments of charoset. And someday, maybe not in our lifetime, maybe in the lives of our grandchildren's grandchildren, people will only be eating charoset or maror.
Feel free to pause this recording at any point to read the commentary and stories in this Haggadah. This night of Passover is meant to be a time of telling our stories and the stories of our faith to each other and to the next generation. Feel free to ask each other questions about the text of the Haggadah and of the Jewish journey you are on. So sit down, relax, and let the music and teachings of this ancient tradition transform you. Yehuda will now welcome us with Hine Matov, followed by Rabbi Steve blessing our children on page 6.
Hine Matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov, da 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 da. Hine Matov, da 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 da. Behold, our how good and how pleasant it is when brethren dwell together. Behold how good and how pleasant it is when brethren dwell together in unity, in unity. Ya-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. In unity, in unity. Ya-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Hine matovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine mato, ya-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Hine mato, ya-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Now we're turning to Magid. Magid is a Hebrew word. The word Haggadah comes from, or Magid comes from Haggadah, telling or retelling or the recitation. And Magid is, you might say, the most dense of the sections of the Haggadah. Officially, it begins on page number 16. Rabbi Kramer and I selected this Haggadah on November, which stories, commentary, poetry, in illustration, supposed to engage in the Haggadah. So just a few highlights, and I hope that we hope that you have the opportunity at your own time and at your own leisure, perhaps go through and read and sample some of the bits of the Haggadah. And even after this Seder, you might come back a day or 2 or 3 from now, look at something else that you haven't noticed. We begin the Magid here on page number 20, the story of the matzah. And as you see here, I'm holding matzah and matzah because I've got my necktie. So one of these things doesn't belong here. Which one? So, lachma anya. This is the bread of poverty and persecution that our ancestors ate in the land of Egypt. Let all who are hungry come and eat. Let all who are in need come and share the Pesach meal. This year we are still here. Next year in the land of Israel. This year we are still slaves. Next year we are free people. Next year may we all be free. Even built into the Haggadah is the hope, the future, optimism that the next time will be better. I'm drawn to a little story shared from and by through this editor, David Ben-Gurion. It's on page number 22. It's entitled The Jewish Mayflower. 300 years ago, a ship called the Mayflower set sail to the New World. This was a great event in the history of England. Yet I wonder if there is one Englishman who knows at what time the ship set sail. Do the English know how many people embarked on this journey? What quality of bread did they eat? Yet more than 3,300 years ago, before the Mayflower set sail, the Jews left Egypt. Every Jew in the world, even in America or Soviet Russia, knows exactly on what date they left, the 15th of the month of Nisan. Everyone knows what kind of bread the Jews ate, matzah. Even today, the Jews worldwide eat matzah on the 15th of Nisan. They retell the story of the Exodus and all the troubles Jews have endured since being exiled, saying, this year slaves, next year free. This year here, next year in Jerusalem, in Sion, in Zion, in Eretz Israel. This is the nature of the Jews. And on page 24, in a moment, our good friend Miriam Wyman from Auburn will be leading us in the 4 questions in English and in Hebrew. Again, it's on page number 24. And friend Cantor Neil Schwartz, our good friend Cantor Neil Schwartz, Dothan, will be offering the 4 questions in Yiddish. Well, not found here in terms of the actual wording on the page, but something joyous and special for us to hear and to.
Why is this night different from other nights?
מה נשתנה הלילה הזה מכל הלילות? On all other nights, we eat either leavened bread or matzah. But on this night, only matzah. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים חמץ ומצה, חמץ ומצה. הלילה הזה כולו מצה. הלילה הזה כולו מצה.
The 4 questions in Yiddish, page 24. Tate Leben, ich will die 4 Kaschen sprechen. War was ist die dosige Nacht von Pesach, anders von allen Nacht von ein ganz Jahr. Die erste Kasche ist, alle Nacht von ein ganz Jahr, essen wir Chometz und Matze, aber der Nacht von Pesach, essen wir nur Matze.
On all other nights, we eat other kinds of vegetables, but on this night, we eat maror, herbs. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים שאר ירקות, שאר ירקות. הלילה הזה מרור, מרור. הלילה הזה מרור, מרור.
Zweite Kasche ist, alle Nacht von ein ganz Jahr essen wir alle Grinsen, aber die Nacht von Pesach essen wir nur Maror.
On all other nights, we need not dip our vegetables even once, but on this night, we dip twice. שבכל הלילות אין אנו מטבילין אפילו פעם אחת, אפילו פעם אחת. הלילה הזה שתי פעמים. הלילה הזה שתי פעמים.
Dritte Kasche ist, alle Nacht von ein ganz Jahr tunken wir nicht einer viel einmal, aber der Nacht von Pesach tunken wir 1 zweimal.
On all other nights, we eat either sitting upright or reclining. But on this night, we all recline. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים בין יושבים ובין מסובין, בין יושבים ובין מסובין. הלילה הזה כולנו מסובין. הלילה הזה כולנו מסובין.
Vierte Kasche ist, alle Nacht von ein ganz Jahr essen wir 2 sitzendig und sei ungelehnt, aber die Nacht von Pesach essen wir nur ungelehnt. Tate Leben, entführ mir die 4 Kasches.
Thank you to Miriam. Thank you to Neil. On page 26 is a cute illustration of the cat in the hat, and below the cat in the hat, there's a little reading, no questions, no class. A story is told of Rabbi Joseph Dov Soloveitchik, the legendary teacher at Yeshiva University, a great philosopher and a great Talmudist, who demanded that his students prepare rigorously for each class. Often he began his class by asking if any of the hundreds of students crowding his lecture hall had any questions on the assigned text. Many of the students had reviewed the material, and yet they feared to ask, lest the questions reveal their ignorance to their teacher. Once, when not one of the hundreds of students dared ask a question, Rav Soloveitchik demonstratively slammed his Talmud closed and walked out saying, "No questions, no class." Learning requires the courage to expose your ignorance, so a teacher or a parent or someone else can address the real issue. Learning requires to expose one's ignorance so that he or she can grow and go forward. The Haggadah continues with Avadim Hayinu on page 28, and Miriam will be leading the Avadim Hayinu on page number 28. In response to the questions and Avadim Hayinu, we have here the four sons, the four children, and on the Haggadah's page begins with page number 40, and it continues for a number of pages. The Hebrew word ben means son or child, the plural banim, sons or children. And so you understand why some Haggadahs call these four the four sons or the four children. We could spend hours addressing what it means to have these four children here in the Haggadah. What does it mean to call a child wise, to label a child wicked, to nickname a child simple, to mention, oh, this one doesn't even know how to ask a question? What happens in the family, household, the neighborhood, the school, the community, when we nickname and identify people in these ways? We're not speaking only of the Passover Seder experience. We're speaking of something much grander in terms of how people interact and the relationships that are set in motion, the relationships that are stunted. Again, I encourage you to perhaps at your own leisure pause this video and perhaps consider some of the passages here from pages 40 through 55. Here on page 51, we have four biblical daughters. It's a method of drawing our attention to the women in our world. Over the course of many centuries, we haven't had enough presence in our lives of our women. We haven't seen enough influence and role models And again, that's why our attention is drawn to this specific Haggadah, because there's so much material, so much for us to consider. I'm noticing a small paragraph in the lower left corner on page 55. It's entitled Communication Across the Generation Gap. Tomorrow, when your child asks you, tomorrow's generation is always so unpredictably different than today's. Torah spoke to immigrants who passed in a mere 3 generations from slavery in Egypt to wandering in the desert, and then became farmers and shepherds in the promised land. God commanded parents to tell their children stories of what it was like back in the old country, back when I was a child. But it would also be good for parents to ask their children what is unique about the tomorrow generation. Or you might consider on page 57, a little stanza, Jewish by choice. And now in a moment, Danielle Eisen will be offering V'hi She'amda on page 62. Some people have a tradition of lifting the glass of wine during the singing, chanting, recitation of V'hi She'amda, which might be considered a toast to God. Our good friend Danielle Eisen.
Page 62. V'hi She'amda, V'hi She'amda, Avotenu v'landu. V'hi She'amda, V'hi She'amda, Avotenu v'landu. Delo echad bilvad, Amad aleinu l'chalotenu. Delo echad bilvad, Amad aleinu l'chalotenu. Elash v'chot arador, Omdim aleinu l'chalotenu. Elash v'chot arador, Omdim aleinu l'chalotenu. Kadosh Baruch Ha, Matzilenu mi'adam. Kadosh Baruch Ha, Matzilenu mi'adam.
The 10 plagues are here on page number 78, and we have a glass of wine. It has been a tradition for a long, long time for Jewish people to dip a little bit of wine out of their wine goblets and put it off to the side, whether it's a bowl or a platter or a saucer underneath your wine goblet. Some people use a spoon or a fingertip, but we're not supposed to lick off the fingertip or the spoon after we finish the dipping. The words of my dad, Alav Shalom, who is no longer with us, we're not supposed to enjoy any benefit. We are removing a little bit of the joy from our full goblet. And if the point is to remove a little bit of the joy so that we can be more empathetic towards the former taskmasters who needed to suffer in order that we gain our freedom, we shouldn't benefit even a little bit. Seder is a feast. It's a banquet celebrating getting out of Egypt. We're getting rid of the encumbrance of that oppression hundreds of years. And yet when it comes to the plagues, which were the last straw that broke the camel's back or Pharaoh's back, we don't delight in the suffering of our former adversary. So if you have spoon or your fingertip, depending upon what your preference is, and we take a little bit of wine out of the goblet and we say dam, which means blood. Sephardeia, which means frogs. Enim lice. Dever, cattle plague. Green boils. Borrowed hail. Arbe locust. Boshech darkness. Makat becharot, the death of the firstborn. And you and I know from the very formation of our people, recorded in Torah, that we are forbidden to consume blood. That is the underpinning of what we later call keeping kosher, kashrut. When you eat an animal, you make sure you remove all the blood from the animal. And we're looking at this wine here at the saucer at the base of the goblet, thinking of the first plague that started us on eventually the road to freedom. And we're a little horrified that the blood had to be spilled. That's as close as we come to blood. Somebody asked my father once, why are there 3 abbreviations of the 10 plagues here on the bottom of the page? And first, if you don't mind, let's just try sounding them out, then I'll explain. It's Pesach, representing the first 3 plagues. Hadash, second 3 plagues. Vachav, last 4 plagues. And the answer is that if you look at the book of Psalms, there is a presentation of 8 plagues, not 10, and they are actually in a slightly different order. So Rabbi Yehuda, who is giving us this little mnemonic here, is teaching us that if we're to remember the version of the plagues, it's more accurate, it's better to mention the version of the plagues found in the book of Exodus than it is to go by the version of the plagues mentioned in the book of Psalms. And we're familiar with the very famous song Dayenu, and we're excited that Danielle Eisen, such a beautiful voice, is going to lead us in the Dayenu. In the Haggadah, it's on page 82.
Ilu natalanu et Shabbat, natalanu et Shabbat dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu natalanu et Torah, natalanu et Torah dayenu. Dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu hikmi sanu l'Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael hikmi sanu dayenu, 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 dayenu.
And we had a couple of our religious school kids come by the other day and decorate our table. So this is from Claire Gibson, and her greeting is Pesach Sameach. That's Claire Gibson. She is 7 years old. Thank you for writing Pesach Sameach, Happy Pesach in Hebrew, Claire. And this is Mary Frances. She is 9, also Mary Frances Gibson. And she writes Pesach Sameach, and she decorates it. So a shout out to Claire Gibson and Mary Frances Gibson, who decorated the shul table from Ahavas Chesed in Mobile, which is welcoming people from the community of Alabama and beyond. We're excited because Miriam and Turia of Auburn are going to be singing Lo Yisagoy, which means a nation shall not lift up a sword against another nation. V'lo yilmedu od milchama. Someday people will no longer even know how to fight against each other. And now the three main symbols, according to Rabban Gamliel. If you're following along in the Haggadah, we're on page 86. Rabban Gamliel was a very important rabbi who lived about 2,000 years ago. And he said, if you don't fulfill these three elements, you haven't done your job. Pesach is the roasted bone. And on page 86, you read, Pesach al Shumah, the Pesach lamb that our ancestors ate in the days of the temple. Why did we used to eat it? To remind ourselves that God passed over our ancestors' houses in Egypt at this very hour on this very date. So here's the Pesach, that's the bone. And on page 88, we have the matzah, and we all know about matzah. Why matzah? To remind ourselves that even before the dough of our ancestors in Egypt had time to rise and become leavened, the ruler of rulers, the Holy One, was revealed and redeemed them. The Torah says they baked unleavened cakes of the dough that they had taken out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, since they had been driven out of Egypt and could not delay, nor had they prepared any provisions for themselves. And now comes Maror. And believe it or not, folks, there are a number of different opportunities for Maror. Maror means bitter. So you could use arugula. If you like, or rather don't like arugula, you could use arugula. I don't really like radishes. Radishes are kind of a bitter taste. We sometimes use radishes. What if you like horseradish? Are you supposed to enjoy the horseradish that you're eating for the maror? Or is the maror supposed to be bitter? I'll let you figure that one out on your own. But there are any number of opportunities. So the important element is, of course, reminding us of the bitterness of slavery. And please join me. It's the very bottom of page 88. It says all, the bottom paragraph. To remind ourselves that the Egyptians embittered our ancestors' lives. They embittered their lives with hard labor, with mortar and bricks, construction, and with all sorts of field labor, agriculture. Whatever the task, they worked them ruthlessly. And now again, it's a delight to welcome Enter Neil Schwartz singing the whole Dor Vador on page number 90. And after Danielle's singing B'Tzeit Yisrael, which will be in the Haggadah on page number 94.
Full Dor Vador 90. In every generation, one must look upon him or herself as if he or she personally came out of Egypt. Bechol Dor Vador chayav Adam lir'od et atzmo keilu yatsa mimitzrayim. Bechol Dor Vador chayav Adam lir'od lir'od et atzmo keilu yatsa mimitzrayim.
Page 94, B'Tzeit Yisrael. B'Tzeit Yisrael mimitzrayim, Beit Yaakov me'am lo'ez. B'Tzeit Yisrael mimitzrayim, Beit Yaakov me'am lo'ez. Harta Yehuda l'kodsho, Yisrael mam shelotav. Hayam Rabbeyanos, Hayardin Yisov Lachor, Aharim Rakaducheli, Givot Givnetzon, Malech Hayam, Itanus, Hayardin, Hayardin, Yisov Lachor, Aharim, Givnetzon, Givot Givnetzon. Believe Leodon, Oliaras, believe me, Aloha Yaakov, Ahochi Hatzur, Agamayim, Alamish, Alamish,
Mi chamocha b'halim Adonai, mi chamocha neder b'kodesh. No radai lo tosefele, no radai lo tosefele. Malchutecha ra'uvanecha, okeyam lifne Moshe. Zeliyanu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch le'lam vayed. Yai-da-dai-dai, yai-da-dai-dai-dai, yai-da-dai-dai, yai-da-dai-dai-dai. Yai-da-dai-dai, yai-da-dai-dai, yai-da-dai-dai-dai, yai-da-dai-dai. Mi chamocha b'halim Adonai, mi chamocha neder b'kodesh. No radai lo tosefele, no radai lo tosefele, no radai lo tosefele.
And the second glass of wine is found here on page number 96. It's entitled in English, A Toast to Redemption. And if you have the Haggadah open, I ask that you follow along and recite with me in English. prior to the Borei Priagafen. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who redeemed us and redeemed our ancestors from Egypt, and who brought us to this night to eat matzah and moror. Adonai, our God and God of our ancestors, may you bring us in peace to future holidays. May we celebrate them in your rebuilt city, and may we be able to eat the Pesach lamb and the other sacrifices offered on the altar. We will thank you for our redemption. Blessed are you, the Redeemer of Israel. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen.
Holy sister, holy daughter, where you are we find the water. Where you are we hear the song. Holy sister Miriam, spring up, oh healing water. We'll follow you down to the well. Spring up, oh healing water. Holy sister, holy daughter, Mika Mocha, Laili Madonna, Mika Mocha, Nedar Bakodesh, Nura Tehilo, Seifele, Nura Tehilo, Seifele. Holy sister, holy daughter, where you are we find the water. Where you are we hear the song. Holy sister Miriam, spring up, oh healing water. We'll follow you down to the well. Spring up, oh healing water. Holy sister, holy daughter, where you are we hear the song. Holy sister Miriam.
We turn to page 98. Rachsa Motzi Matzah. First, we wash our hands. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, motzi lechem min haaretz. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat matzah. We turn to page 100. Ooh. For the eating of the bitter herbs, the maror, take a little bit of horseradish, and we say the bracha, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat maror. And we take a couple pieces of matzah. We put maror and charoset. And we eat the sandwich. The sandwich is eaten in memory of Pesach in the temple. As Hillel used to celebrate it, he would sandwich the Pesach lamb between matzah and maror and eat them all together in order to observe the law. You shall eat it. It's the Pesach sacrifice on matzot and maror. We now come to the Shulchan Aruch, which means prepared table, and is, of course, the one thing everyone has been asking for. When do we eat? Now. Put the video on pause and continue after you have had your sumptuous Seder meal. Safun, page 104. Now for arguably the best part of the Seder, searching for the afikomen. The afikomen is the last thing eaten at the Seder. We cannot conclude unless we eat that last morsel of matzah. So, where did I put it? Can't remember. Daphna, do you have the afikomen? Oh, she's not here. She is with her parents. Rafi, do you have the afikomen? No, Rafi is in Greenbelt, Maryland. I might know who has it. Kyla, do you have my afikomen? You do? It's lucky I brought an extra doggy treat for you. Hand over the afikomen. Okay, here is your treat. And here is our treat. Found the afikomen. Why are there bite marks and slobber on this matzah? Delectable. Danielle will now continue with a shortened version of Birkat Hamazon on page 106.
Shir Malach b'shuv Adonai et shivat Zion hayinu kechomi. Az Yemalech Opinu Oshani Nurina. Az Yom Revat Goyim Yigdil Adonai Lasot Imela. Yigdil Adonai Lasot Imanu. Ayinu Semnechi Adonai Hashemichenu, Happy Imanagan, Azorim, Medima, every night, so Alagilakuvako, no se mashakazara, Voya, Verina, no se alumo, Amatinara, Yeshimon Rakmet Adolam, Rakmet Adolam, Shoot Rabatai, never outline. Rokalina Shaka of to all kind. Rokalina love to all kind do. Baruch Rishamo, Baruch Atadonai.
Danielle will now continue with a shortened version of Birkat Hamazon on page 106.
Shir Amala Beshuv Adonai, at Shiva Sionayinu Kakomim, Az Yamale, Schopinu, Oshane Nurina, Az Yom Reva Goyim, Higdil Adonai Lasotimela, Higdil Adonai Lasotimanu, Ayinu Semechim, Shuv Adonai Hashemichenu, Kapikim Manakev, Azorim, Medima, Beri Nayit Zoru, Halogilakuvako, no se mashakazara, Voya, Verina, no se alumota. Rabotainara, Yehi Shimon Barak Metavi Adolam. Yehi Shimon Barak Metavi Adolam. Birshut Rabotai, never Akalina Shalchana Mishalov. Baruch Alina Shalchana Mishalov to all Chayinu. Baruch Alina Shalchana Mishalov to all Chayinu. Baruch Rishamo, Baruch Atadonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Hazon et haolam kulo b'tibo, Ma'achir b'chasan ivrakamim, Unoti lacham l'chol basar, Ki le'olam chasto, Uv'tiva ha'gadol, Tami lo chazalanu, v'ayachzalanu, Mazon le'olam vad, Bavor Shabbat Gadol, Ki hozanim farnes la'akol, U'meitiv la'akol, u'meichim la'azon, La'akol briotov asher bara, Baruch atah Adonai, Azon v'atakol. Kakatu v'yachalta v'sabata u'v'rokta, Et Adonai Elohecha, Artzot asher natalach, Baruch atah Adonai, Haaretz v'Amazon. Uvene in the transliteration at the bottom of the page. Uvene Yerushalayim, Yerakodesh b'meravi Ameinu, Baruch atah Adonai, V'honeh Baruch Amav, Yerushalayim, Amin, Amin, Amin. And in English, on page 109, on the right, May the Merciful One send us Elijah, the prophet, to bring us good tidings of consolation and comfort. May God bless everyone gathered here, hosts and guests, relatives and friends, with health, financial means, and generosity. On Seder, may the Merciful One let us inherit the day of total goodness. May the Merciful One bless the state of Israel. May the Merciful One grant peace between the children of Jacob and the children of Ishmael. May the Merciful One enable us to live in the days of the Messiah and earn the world to come. Page 110. Migdol Yeshuot Malko v'Yosech Chesed Limshicho LeDavid uLeSaro Ad Olam Hoseh Shalom B'Ramav Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael ve'imeru Yerat Adonai Kedoshav Ki Machzor Librehav Kifim Rashu V'Ra'ivu V'Dorshei Adonai Lo Chosor Tov Hodu Adonai Ki Tov Ki Le'olam Chasto Poteach et Yadacha Umas Bi'alach Haratzon Baruch HaGever She'tach B'Adonai V'Haya Adonai Mivtacho Nar Hayitikam Sakanti V'lo Rayiti Tzadik Nezav V'zara Mevakesh Lachem V'zara Mevakesh Lachem Adonai Oz Li'amoyitin Adonai Yivacharech Etzamo V'Shalom.
Third cup of wine, page 110. Let's say the bracha for the third cup of wine on page 110. Please remember to lean to your left. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, borei peri hagafen. Starting to kick in. Elijah's cup and Eliyahu Hanavi on page 112, followed by Toria and Miriam singing Min HaMeitzar on page 118.
Hello. Now we get to the good part of this. Make sure you call the kiddies in here for her. We're going to be doing Elijah's cup. So, go ahead and you want to try to fill it as much as you can because we want to do our best to get them in here. All the way up to the tippy top. There we go. And I am not carrying this to the door. Okay, now that we've filled the cup, now we get the kids together and we're going to go open the door and see if we can get them to come in. That's the fun part. But wait, my kids aren't with me. Let me think about this for a second. I have an idea. I have somebody who would definitely help me. Give me just a second. Cheshire. There you are. Good boy. Okay, so my friend Cheshire is going to help me. And we're going to go to the door and we're going to see if we can get Elijah to come in. All right, come to the door. You think he'll be there? Elijah. 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 We have a big cup of wine for you. He's going to come. Maybe we need a little something else. I know somebody who can help us. How about our good friend Charles?
Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, אליהו הגלעדי, במהרה יבוא אלינו עם משיח בן דוד, במהרה יבוא אלינו עם משיח בן דוד. אליהו הנביא, אליהו התשבי, אליהו הגלעדי, במהרה יבוא אלינו עם משיח בן דוד, במהרה יבוא אלינו עם משיח בן דוד.
Now we come to the fourth and final cup of wine. Join me on page 122. Again, remember to lean to your left. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, borei peri hagafen. Blessed are you, Adonai, for the vine and its fruit, for the beautiful and spacious land you gave us. Have mercy on us and bring us there to eat its fruits. Grant us happiness on this festival of Matzot. Blessed are you, Adonai, for the land and for the fruit of the vine. Charles will now continue on page 124 with Vayihi Chatzi, and Adir Hu on page 126, followed by Neil doing a Ladino version of Echad Miodea on page 127. Then Charles will sing a fun version of Chad Gadya beginning on page 132, and Chasal Sidur Pesach Lishana Haba. Yehuda will sing Oseh Shalom on page 136, and Charles with B'Shana Haba'ah on page 138. Rabbi Steve will conclude with Hatikva.
Karev Yom. Karev Yom, Asher hu lo yom velo laila. Ram hoda, 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 כי לך היום, אף לך הלילה, שומרים אבקי לירך, כל היום וכל הלילה, תהיר באור יום חשכת לילה, ויהי בחצי הלילה. Page 126, Adir Hu. Nadir Hu yivne beto beto bekarov bimhera yamenu bekarov bimhera בימינו בקרוב. אל כל בני ביתך בקרוב. בחור הוא, גדול הוא, דגול הוא, יבנה ביתו בקרוב. במהרה בימינו בקרוב. במהרה בימינו בקרוב. אל בני ביתך בקרוב. הדוהו ותיקו זכאיהו יבנה ביתו בקרוב. במהרה בימינו בקרוב. במהרה בימינו בקרוב. כל בני ביתך בקרוב. חסיד הוא, דהו, יחיד הוא, יבנה ביתו בקרוב. במהרה בימינו בקרוב. במהרה בימינו בקרוב. אל בני ביתך בקרוב. כביר הוא, למות הוא, מלך הוא, יבנה ביתו בקרוב. במהרה בימינו בקרוב. במהרה בימינו בקרוב. כל בני ביתך בקרוב. נורא הוא, שגיב הוא, איזוס הוא, יבנה ביתו בקרוב. במהרה בימינו בקרוב. במהרה בימינו בקרוב. כל בני ביתך בקרוב. פודהו צדיקו קדושו יבנה ביתו בקרוב. במהרה בימינו בקרוב. במהרה בימינו בקרוב. כל בני ביתך בקרוב. רחום הוא, שדי הוא, תקיף הוא, יבנה ביתו בקרוב. במהרה בימינו בקרוב. במהרה בימינו בקרוב. אל בני ביתך בקרוב.
Here is Echad Miodea, who knows one, in the Ladino language. They're just the first 5 of 13 word questions. Quien supiese y entendiese alabar al Dio, creense cuál es el uno. Uno es el Creador, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo. Y en su pieza y entendiense alabar al Dios, créense cuál es el dos. Dos Moshe y Aarón, uno es el Creador, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo. Y en su pieza y entendiense alabar al Dios, créense cuál es el tres. Tres padres nuestros son Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Dos Moshe y Aarón, uno es el Creador, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo. Y en su pieza y entendiense alabar al Dios, créense cuál es el cuatro. Cuatro madres nuestros son Sara, Rivka, Lea, Rachel. Tres padres nuestros son dos Moshe y Aarón. Uno es el Creador, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo. Y en su pieza y entendiense alabar al Dios, créense cuál es el cinco. 5 libros de la ley, 4 mujeres nuestros son, 3 padres nuestros son, 2 Moshe y Aarón, uno es el Creador, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo.
100. Chad Gad. Chad Gad Ya, Chad Gad Ya. Zabin Abba Pitre Jesuze Chad Gad Ya, Chad Gad Ya. Yata Shunra Yakla Legadia. Zabin Abba Pitre Jesuze Chad Gad Ya, Chad Gad Ya. Yata Kalba Ruf Ruf Inashach Lishunra Yakla Legadia. Zabin Abba Pitre Jesuze Chad Gad Ya, Chad Gad Ya. Yata Chutra Kale Kalba Ruf Nashach Leshunra Yachla Legadia Zabin Abba Bitre Jesuze Chad Gad Ya, Chad Gad Ya. Veyatanura Vesarap Lechutra Dika Lekalba Ruf Dinashal Keshunra Diachla Legadia Zabin Amba Bitre Zuze Chad Gad Ya, Chad Gad Ya. Veyatamaya Vechaba Lenura Tesarap Lechutra Yika Lekalba Ruf Dinashak Leshunra Diachla Legadia Zabin Abba Bitre Zuze Chad Gad Ya, Chad Gad Ya. Veyata Torah Tishata Lemaya Tisaka Balanura Disarach Lechutra Dika Lekalba Ruf Dinashak Leshunra Diachla Legadia Zabin Abba Bitre Zuze Chad Gad Ya, Chad Gad Ya. Veyata Shochet Vishachat Letorah Dishata Lemaya Dechaba Lenura Disalat Lechutra Dika Lekalba Ruf Dinashak Leshunra Diachla Legadia Zabin Abba Pitre Zuze Chad Gad Ya, Chad Gad Ya. Veyata Malachamoves דשחלה לשוחט, דשחת לתורה, דשתה למאיה, דחבה לנורה, דסרח לחוטרה, דיקה לכלבה, רוף, דנשלח לשונרה, דאכלה לגדיה, דזבין אבא ביתרי זוזה, חד גדיה, חד גדיה, ויתה קדוש ברוך הוא, מוזס, ושחט למלאך המובס, דשחט לשוחט, דשחט לתורה, דשתה למאיה, דסדך חבה לנורה, דסרף לחוטרה, דיקה לכלבה, רוף, דנשך לשונרה, דיאכלה לגדיה, דזבין אבא ביתרי זוזה, חד גדיה, חד גדיה. Page 136, חסל and לשנה הבאה בירושלים. חסל סידור פסח כהלכתו, ככל משפטו וחוקתו, כסר ששינו לסדר אותו, כן נזכה לעשותו, זך שוכן מעונה, כהן קהל הדת ממנה, בקרוב נאל נתקנה, פדויים לציון, פדויים לציון, פדויים לציון, בהרינה, לשנה הבאה בירושלים, לשנה הבאה בירושלים, לשנה הבאה בירושלים, בירושלים הבנויה.
Okay, page number 136. This is Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom bimrumav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu ve'yalom kol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen, imeru amen. Oseh Shalom bimrumav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu ve'yalom kol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen, imeru amen. Oseh Shalom bimrumav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu ve'yalom kol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen, imeru amen.
Page 108, השנה הבאה. השנה הבאה נשב אל המרפסת, הורים נודדות, ילדים בחופשה, ישחקו תופסת בין הבית לבין השדות. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. נבים עמים יבשילו עד הערב, ונונים לשולחן, ורוחות אדומים ייסעו אליהם הדרך עיתונים ישנים וענון. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. שנה הבאה יפרוס כפות ידיים האור הניגר הלבן, ענפה לבנה יפרוס ברוק כתפיים, והשמש תזרח בתוכן. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה.
It's such a pleasure to have shared Pesach with all of y'all, as we say here in the Deep South. You have entered each other's homes. I'm going to remember all those Motzei Shabbat, all those endings of Shabbat, when we were peeking into each other's homes and we saw each other's artwork, stuffed animals, pets, sometimes children or grandchildren. We had a sense of who each and every one of us is, how we as a community have come to be. It's a long-standing tradition in many homes to conclude the Seder with the Hatikva. And as I said, we're here in the Shul Congregation Ahavas Chesed of Mobile. We have our Israeli flag, and I'm proud of this tie that a friend of mine gave me some years ago. And if you're so able, I ask you to rise as we conclude the Seder. First, thanking from a very deep place in my heart my friend and colleague Rabbi Scott Kramer, who has taught me a great deal over the past year, and all of those who've added music to our lives these past months, moving into a year now. Kol od balevav pnima, nefesh Yehudi homiya, ulafate mizrach Adima, ayin letzion Sophia, ulo avda tikvatenu, atikva bachnot alpayim, liotam chovshi be'artzenu, eretz Tzion v'Yerushalayim, liotam chovshi be'artzenu, eretz Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May you all be blessed. May God ever be close to you and your loved ones. May you have shalom and good health. Lehitraot, until we see each other again. Shalom.
Who knows one? We know one. One is Hashem, one is Hashem, one is Hashem, in the heavens and the earth. Yada, yada, yada. I say, ooh, ah, ooh, ooh, ah. I say, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. Who knows two? We know two. Two are the tablets that Moshe brought, and one is Hashem, one is Hashem, one is Hashem, in the heavens and the earth. Yada, 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 yada. I say, ooh, ah, ooh, ooh, ah. I say, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. Who knows three? We know three. Three are the papas and two are the tablets that Moshe brought. And one is Hashem, one is Hashem, one is Hashem, in the heavens and the earth. Yada, 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 yada. I say, ooh, ah, ooh, ooh, ah. I say, ooh, ah, ooh, ooh, ah. Who knows four? We know four. 4 are the mamas, and 3 are the papas, and 2 are the tablets that Moshe brought. 1 is Hashem, 1 is Hashem, 1 is Hashem, in the heavens and the earth. Yabba-dabba-dabba-dam. I say, ooh, ah, ooh, ooh, ah. I say, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. Who knows 5? We know 5. 5 are the books of the Torah, and 4 are the mamas, and 3 are the papas, and 2 are the tablets that Moshe brought. 1 is Hashem, 1 is Hashem, 1 is Hashem, in the heavens and the earth. Da-di-ya-ba-da-ba-da. I say, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. I say, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. Who knows 6? We know 6. 6 are the books of the Mishnah, and 5 are the books of the Torah, and 4 are the mamas, and 3 are the papas, and 2 are the tablets that Moshe brought. 1 is Hashem, 1 is Hashem, 1 is Hashem, in the heavens and the earth. Yabba-dabba-ba-da-da. I say, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. I say, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. Who knows 7? We know 7. 7 are the days of the week. And 6 are the books of the Mishnah, and 5 are the books of the Torah, and 4 are the mamas, and 3 are the papas, and 2 are the tablets that Moshe brought. And 1 is Hashem, 1 is Hashem, 1 is Hashem, in the heavens and the earth. Ba-di-ya-di-ya-di-ya.